Recently, the Knicks approached the Cavaliers to gauge their interest in swapping all-star forwards Carmelo Anthony for Kevin Love, but Cleveland said no thank you. The Knicks' thinking is that they would have to get rid of Anthony. Did they have to discuss waiving his no-trade clause, and Cleveland had shown no interest in the deal. Here's Melo and LeBron on the trade that wasn't.
I really don't have a reaction to it. I mean, until management come to me and say something, then it's not something I can look forward to or feed into at this point. So I really don't have the reaction to it.
I have no reaction. We got 14 guys in here. They need to be ready every night. What we got in here, we got to play. Can't play fantasy basketball. We got who we got, and we got to go out and play.
So the Cavs pass on Melo. Stephen A., do you think this was a wise move?
I don't think it was a wise move on their part, and I want to make sure that I'm clear. I'm not casting any aspersions on Kevin Love whatsoever. He's averaging 20 and 11 on 43% shooting. He's been effective for the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's a third wheel on their squad. I think he'd be better served as at least a second wheel personally, which he obviously can't be in Cleveland with LeBron James and Kyrie Irving there. I just think it's one of those situations where you highlight and you focus in on what you're pursuing. And if you are in pursuit of a championship, then you have to pay attention to who your biggest nemesis potentially may be. And the biggest nemesis, obviously, is the Golden State Warriors. Now, if the Golden State Warriors still had Andrew Bogut and Harrison Barnes as opposed to Kevin Durant, then you might not have the need to do such things. But because they have Kevin Durant to couple with Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, two of the greatest shooters in the world, along with Draymond Green, you have to be ready to adapt and to make the necessary adjustments. And I don't think the Cleveland Cavaliers, as presently constructed, can beat that Golden State Warriors team that we're seeing. You have to have somebody who can create their own shot when things break down, not literally have to rely upon a LeBron James or a Kevin or a Kyrie Irving to do that for them. And that's what I see when I think about Kevin Love. Kevin Love can ball. He is no scrub. He's a good dude. All of those things come into consideration. But if you're LeBron James, who's been to 6 straight NBA Finals, you know what it takes to get there. And in the end, without saying so directly, what you're essentially saying is, as presently constructed, we are not good enough. We need to make an adjustment. Certainly you need a backup point guard. So that doesn't, Carmelo's potential arrival doesn't erase that need. But in the end, I think if you have an opportunity to get a Carmelo Anthony because of the style of play he plays, Max, and because of what he can do on the basketball court and what LeBron's presence will take away from him from a culpability and responsibility standpoint, thereby allowing Carmelo Anthony to actually play even longer, I definitely think it was something they should have strongly considered, and I think it was a mistake by Cleveland Cavaliers brass to not bring Carmelo on board with LeBron.
They were absolutely right in turning down the idea of this trade. Maybe what you're saying would be right, maybe, and I don't even know if that's true then, but if it was the offseason, and you had all year to integrate a piece as large as Carmelo Anthony into the fabric of the team. Look, Golden State had some issues integrating Kevin Durant into their team because a piece that large, even if it's only one, an offensive player that significant, changes the offensive dynamic of the team. And Carmelo Anthony is not on the same planet as Kevin Durant offensively. Yeah, I said it, Stephen A. Carmelo Anthony
you're smoking something.
Carmelo Anthony's a great ISO scorer, but ISO scorer is not offense. It's a part of offense. As an ISO scorer, Carmelo's as good as just about anyone who's ever lived at the position. But as an overall offensive player, Kevin Durant is on a completely different level than Carmelo Anthony, and Durant plays defense, and they won 73 games last year, and it's been difficult for them. You want to take away a shooter in Kevin Love and a guy who can pass the ball and shoot the ball, even if you think Carmelo is better than Kevin Love, and you can argue that, maybe win that argument. Even if you wanted to do that, his skills, the fact that he can get his own shot on a team with 2 guys who play as many minutes as LeBron and Kyrie do and can also get their own shots, is not what's most important. And then, even if it was, the idea that halfway through the season, you then integrate that piece and that gives you a better chance to win over a guy who's been there for a couple years, I think is ridiculous. They were smart to turn down this deal.
Well, first of all, a couple of things. Number one, the first go-round, Kevin Love was hurt. vast majority of the latter part of the season and throughout actually the first round of the playoffs against Boston that year. He was going for the playoffs. So in terms of winning or going to the finals or whatever, he had nothing to do with that the first go round. Last year, I think that he was criticized and vilified unnecessarily so, because even though he wasn't effective offensively, he did a lot of other good things. So I'm certainly not, again, I'm glad you brought that up about Kevin Love, because I'm not trying to cast any aspersions on him whatsoever. But let's analyze his game for a second, and we're talking a game of basketball here. You're looking at a guy like a Kevin Love when he was in Minnesota. Yes, he could step out and pull out for the three, but he was also bigger, bulkier, and was more of a presence down low for the Minnesota Timberwolves when he was there. He was a rebounding machine, not to mention the fact that he could score in the post. That's not the role that he plays with Cleveland, primarily due to the presence of a Tristan Thompson down low, how much room he takes up in terms of what he does defensively and his activity on the offensive boards, not to mention the fact that LeBron does what he does inside and out. When you look at a Carmelo Anthony, I wasn't comparing him to Kevin Durant, but since you want to bring it up, let's be clear. I think that Kevin Durant is one of the top 2 players in the world. I think one can make the argument that he could close better than almost anybody. I think that he could go down ultimately as the greatest scorer in NBA history outside of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I'm not even willing to rule out that he could catch Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's that lethal as an offensive force and obviously efficient. But let's not sit up there and poo-poo the greatness of Carmelo Anthony as a basketball player on the offensive side of the ball. You can sit there and highlight ISO all you want to. ISO, non-ISO. The dude can score spot up. He can score off the dribble. He can shoot mid-range. He can step out to the three-point line. He can hit free throws. He can post up. That's what I'm talking about.
In other words, he's a huge offensive piece. He's a huge offensive piece, right?
Yeah,
because the kind of thing you can bring on into a team if you're trying to win a championship that year in the middle of the season, you need a defensive stopper, fine, a three-point shooter, fine, a backup point guard, fine. You want to integrate a huge offensive piece into a team trying to win a championship?
Let me finish my point. My point to you is that when you talk about fitting him in, the key element in all of that I explained, Max, is that when things break down, you can give him the ball and he can sit up there and do something for you. And when you take into account the fact that you're talking about Kyrie on the floor, sometimes things do break down. But when they break down, Kyrie has the skills to close anyway. So a Carmelo has the skills to close. If you are a Kevin Love, that's not your game. So when things break down and Kyrie is not on the floor, it's more difficult for you to offset that breakdown because of how limited Kevin Love is. Even though he's gifted, his game is structured in such a way, and LeBron is not a shooter.
That's why LeBron wants a backup point guard. How many minutes are we really talking about when either Kyrie or LeBron, because you have 2 guys who can, when things break down, do what they need to do, as well as anyone in the game. You need 3 guys to do that? No, you need a backup point guard to fill in some minutes.
Wait a minute. You might need 3 guys for Golden State. You're right if we're just talking about a regular season. You're right if we're just talking about a playoffs. Because with or without the team that's presently constructed, we all believe that Cleveland's going to the finals. What we're talking about here is who you're trying to beat. Let's not, once again, here's our argument. Because this is you ignoring everything, leading up to June because you're looking so forward to June. See, this is what you got to make up your mind, because
I'm looking at... You're the one who said that June is foregone conclusion.
But what I'm saying, no, I said June meaning Golden State and Cleveland.
Yes.
I'm telling you, you've been saying, I can't wait, and I love this ride to the finals because it's beautiful, and then look what's going to happen in June. Well, now that I'm looking forward to June, you telling me to look at everything else. I'm like, hell no. I'm not looking at everything else. I'm looking at June. I'm looking at Golden State in June. I'm looking at what it's going to take to beat them.
Continuity.
And I ask a simple question to you, Max Kellerman. I'll come right back at you with this.
Yep.
Kyrie, Love, LeBron going up against Golden State, or Kyrie, LeBron, and Melo. Who you rolling with?
How long have they been playing together? Half a season or 2 seasons? Yeah, that's a big deal.
Okay, all right. That's a big deal to you. I'm saying to you, it's not a big deal to me. I get that. I understand that. It's not a big deal to me because of what I'm talking about offensively. It might be a big deal to me in terms of defensive adjustments and things of that nature. I get that. You're right there. I'm talking strictly offense. I'm talking to the Max Kellerman that knows what basketball is on West 4th Street, know what basketball is at Rutgers Park, knows what basketball is at Madison Square Garden or Madison Square Garden. or Madison Square Garden or anywhere else. I'm saying if you had to have a three-headed monster to go up against Golden State, would it be Love, Kyrie, and LeBron, or LeBron, Melo, and Kyrie? Who you rolling with?
That is a tough question. I might lean toward Melo, maybe depending on what else is on the roster. You overrate Carmelo. He's not as good as you think he is.
Offensively?
Yeah,
I'm overrating him offensively?
Oh, we haven't even gotten into the defense. You don't play any defense at all.
I'm not talking about his
game.
defense. Well, listen, I know it's half the game, which I've said on many occasions, but I also understand the significance of LeBron. The combination of LeBron with a Tristan Thompson, the way JR played defense last year, the way Iman Shumpert is capable of playing defense. You can offset what Melo doesn't give you when you have a LeBron. That makes up for a lot. You can't offset what he brings offensively. You can't do that.
And so the problem is that Cleveland doesn't have enough offense in their starting lineup now? Is that the problem?
Excuse me, against Golden State. Do you believe they do?
I don't think Cleveland's good enough to beat Golden State with or without Carmelo or Kevin Love.
And I believe that if Melo, LeBron, and Kyrie are on the floor together, I want to see that matchup.
Had they been on the floor together all season, maybe. You bring them in halfway through the season, they will get beaten worse than had you not brought them in.
We got more to get into.
It's not as complicated as you think.